For some Star Trek actors, the franchise was a launchpad to bigger stages and brighter spotlights. For others, it was the final frontier, typecast, sidelined, or quietly fading from view. And then there were those who kept working steadily, building careers that may not have grabbed headlines but earned plenty of respect. So let's break it down. Which Trek legends soared, which ones vanished, and which ones carved out solid careers in between. And as we go, drop a comment with your favorite post-Trek role. Patrick Stewart. When Patrick Stewart took the captain's chair in 1987, he was a Shakespearean unknown with a bald head and a skeptical boss who thought he was too serious for Star Trek. 10 years later, he wasn't just Captain Picard, he was a global star. Stewart did what few Trek actors managed. He broke free of the uniform. He anchored X-Men as Professor Xavier, won Emmys for producing and voice work, and still owned the stage in Shakespeare. By 2010, he was Sir Patrick Stewart, literally knighted by the Queen. His resume unmatched, Stewart didn't just escape typecasting, he built one of the most decorated careers in sci-fi and beyond. William Shatner. William Shatner's career outside Trek was chaos in the best way. After Star Trek was canceled, he hit such hard times he was living out of his truck. Then came the comeback. T.J. Hooker, Rescue 911, self-parody on SNL, and Third Rock, and finally an Emmy-winning run as Denny Crane on Boston Legal. Along the way, he leaned into the joke, writing cheesy sci-fi novels, releasing spoken-word albums, even starring in cult horrors about killer rabbits and spiders. And then, in his 90s, Shatner literally went to space. The man who once played Captain Kirk became the oldest human to fly on Blue Origin's rocket. From punchline to pioneer, to Shatner turned post-Trek life into a one-of-a-kind victory lap. Leonard Nimoy. Leonard Nimoy could have been trapped by those ears forever. Instead, he pivoted. He joined Mission Impossible, hosted the cult series In Search Of, and surprised Hollywood by directing Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, and then the biggest movie of 1987, Three Men and a Baby. He published poetry, staged photography shows, and even dropped a hilariously camp single about Bilbo Baggins. Eventually, he made peace with his alter ego. His second memoir was literally titled I Am Spock. By the time he passed in 2015, Nimoy had lived long, prospered, and proven that Star Trek was just the first act of a remarkably diverse creative life. Scott Bakula. Scott was already a TV star before Trek. Fans adored him as Sam Beckett on Quantum Leap, a role that made him a Golden Globe winner and household name, long before he became Captain Archer on Enterprise. Ironically, Enterprise itself was short-lived, but he never missed a step. He pivoted to acclaimed dramas like Men of a Certain Age, and then struck gold with NCIS New Orleans, headlining 7 seasons and reaching a mainstream audience. He's done it all: sitcoms, stage musicals, voice roles, cult animation, and steady network hits well into his 60s. Among Trek captains, he may be the only one for whom the franchise is just a side note. Kate Mulgrew. When Kate Mulgrew became Captain Janeway in 1995, she made history as Trek's first female lead. After Voyager ended, she looked headed for the theater circuit and quiet guest roles, until Netflix came calling. Nearly 20 years later, Mulgrew exploded back into pop culture, as red on Orange is the New Black. Unrecognizable with her Russian accent and fiery hair, she earned Emmy nominations, a Critics' Choice win, and a whole new fan base that had nothing to do with warp drives. That late career reinvention cemented her as more than a one-role icon. Mulgrew proved she could lead a starship and steal every scene in a prison kitchen, all while staying connected to Trek through voice work and conventions. Colm Meaney. Colm Meaney may have started as the quiet transporter chief, but outside Trek, he built one of the most consistent careers of any alum. He earned a Golden Globe nomination for The Snapper, starred in acclaimed films like Commitments and Layer Cake, and showed up in Hollywood blockbusters from Far and Away to Con Air. On television, he's remained a steady presence well into the 2020s, including a key role in Gangs of London. Meaney never chased stardom. He became a journeyman actor, respected on both sides of the Atlantic. Now, not every Trek alum became a superstar or won critical acclaim. Many built steady, respectable careers, the kind where you spot them in a movie or TV episode and think, wait, isn't that someone from Star Trek? Michael Dorn. Michael Dorn logged more Trek appearances than any other actor, but after hanging up Worf's ridges, he pivoted into a whole new arena: voice work. His unmistakable baritone became a calling card, landing him roles in Duck Dodgers, I Am Weasel, and dozens of video games. He voiced superheroes, soldiers, aliens, and everything in between, cementing himself as a prolific voice actor for more than 3 decades. Off-screen, Dorn also pursued a lifelong love of aviation. He became a licensed pilot with a fleet of his own aircraft, even flying vintage military jets at air shows. While he rarely returned to live-action roles outside of Trek, Dorn carved out a second career that was both steady and distinct. He may have stepped out of the camera's spotlight, but his voice and his passions never went quiet. Marina Sirtis. As Counselor Troi, Marina Sirtis was iconic, but after The Next Generation, she faced the uphill battle of typecasting. She lent her voice to the fan-favorite villain, Demona on Gargoyles, popped up in shows like Grey's Anatomy and NCIS, and worked steadily in smaller TV and film roles. Her proudest moment, though, was the TV movie Heaven Help Us, where she played an abused wife, a powerful break from her usual roles that she often cited as deeply meaningful. She's also remained one of the most visible Trek alums on the convention circuit, known for her candid humor and unfiltered takes. And she's returned to the franchise itself, reprising Troi in Star Trek. Picard, delighting fans by reuniting on screen with Jonathan Frakes. It wasn't a flashy Hollywood career, but it was steady, personal, and built on staying connected to the fans and the role that made her famous. Proof that even without blockbusters, she still carved out a life in the industry. Armin Shimerman. Armin Shimerman, best known as Quark, built one of the most eclectic careers of any Trek alum. He found a second life in cult TV as Principal Snyder on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, a delightfully petty thorn in Buffy's side. Around the same time, gamers came to know him as the unhinged Dr. Nefarious in the Ratchet & Clank franchise, a role he's voiced for nearly 2 decades. But Shimerman's talents weren't confined to screen and console. A classically trained stage actor, he's performed Shakespeare, taught acting at USC, and even co-authored fantasy novels. Sharp, snarky authority figures may have been his bread and butter, but his range has always been much wider. He leaned into his niche with gusto, while still proving he was more than just a Ferengi bartender. Rene Auberjonois. Rene Auberjonois, unforgettable as the shape-shifting Odo, carried that same versatility into his career beyond Star Trek. On stage, he won a Tony Award for Coco and earned acclaim in Shakespeare and Broadway productions. On screen, he popped up everywhere, from Robert Altman films like MASH to beloved TV shows across decades. Disney fans know him as the voice of Chef Louis in The Little Mermaid, gleefully singing about chopping fish. In later years, he reunited with William Shatner on Boston Legal, proving his range from comedy to courtroom drama. With hundreds of credits across film, television, stage, and voice work, Auberjonois embodied the consummate character actor, always recognizable, always reliable, and always respected. He passed in 2019 at age 79, but his work, from Odo to Chef Louis and beyond, remains a masterclass in versatility. Jonathan Frakes. Jonathan Frakes didn't just escape typecasting, he reinvented himself. After proving his chops by directing Star Trek First Contact, one of the franchise's most acclaimed films, he became a go-to TV director, helming episodes of Leverage, The Orville, Castle, and dozens more. Colleagues praised him for being fast, efficient, and actor-friendly, the kind of director every set wants. And then there's his second life in pop culture. As host of Beyond Belief, Fact or Fiction, Frakes delivered some of the most unintentionally hilarious intros of the 90s, clips that went viral decades later. His deadpan questions like, "Ever been to a haunted house?" turned him into a meme machine. Frakes pulled off something rare, becoming both a respected creative force behind the camera and a beloved tongue-in-cheek internet icon. Few Trek alums can claim that kind of double legacy. Roxann Dawson. Roxann Dawson, who played engineer B'Elanna Torres, discovered her true calling behind the camera. Starting by directing episodes of Star Trek Enterprise, she quickly built a reputation as a sharp, efficient storyteller. Over the years, she became a go-to name for prestige television, directing episodes of House of Cards, The Americans, This Is Us, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and The Deuce. Dawson also branched into film, directing Breakthrough, a faith-based drama that earned solid box office returns. Her career has shown that you don't always need to stay in front of the camera to succeed. Sometimes the bigger impact comes from calling the shots. Dawson proved that stepping out of the spotlight could lead to an even stronger legacy in Hollywood. Robert Duncan McNeill. Robert Duncan McNeill, remembered as Tom Paris on Voyager, didn't stop at acting. Like his co-star Roxann Dawson, he found a second career behind the camera. McNeill directed episodes of Dawson's Creek and One Tree Hill before moving into bigger projects, eventually becoming an executive producer and key director on the long-running NBC series Chuck. He's also stayed connected to sci-fi, working on The Orville and other genre shows where his background as both actor and director gave him a unique perspective. McNeill's career is a model of adaptability, proving that sometimes the smartest move is trading the captain's chair for the director's chair and turning one cult role into decades of steady Hollywood work. DeForest Kelley. Before Trek, DeForest Kelley was a familiar face in Westerns. After it ended, he appeared in one last oddball movie, Night of the Lepus, where giant rabbits ran amok, then called it quits. Other than reprising McCoy in the films, Kelley retired, spending his later years at conventions and with fans. He never chased stardom again and seemed perfectly happy that way. DeForest Kelley left us in 1999 at 79. Even so, Bones remains immortal in conventions, reruns, and the hearts of fans. Nichelle Nichols. Nichelle Nichols didn't land many major Hollywood roles after the original series, though she memorably shocked audiences in Truck Turner as a foul-mouthed madam. But her greatest impact was real-world. She partnered with NASA to recruit women and minorities into the astronaut program, directly inspiring future pioneers like Dr. Mae Jemison. Nichols' second act wasn't about credits. It was about changing history. She passed in 2022 at 89 with on- and off-screen legacy that lives on. Garrett Wang. Garrett Wang, who played Harry Kim on Voyager, seemed poised for more. But after the show ended, auditions dried up and he struggled to find steady work. Rather than disappear, Wang embraced fandom itself. He became a staple at conventions, helped organize Star Trek cruises, and leaned into his role as a fan ambassador. His Hollywood career may have been short, but his connection to Trek never ended. Jolene Blalock. Jolene Blalock, hyped during Enterprise as a rising star, looked primed for breakout success. But once the series ended in 2005, she all but vanished from Hollywood. A few low-budget films, a guest spot on Stargate, and then silence. Blalock later said she was disillusioned with the industry and chose family life instead. For someone once touted as Trek's next big thing, her retreat was sudden but deliberate. Avery Brooks. Avery Brooks gave Deep Space Nine its heart and soul as Captain Sisko, yet after the show wrapped, he nearly disappeared from acting. He returned to teaching drama at Rutgers and toured as a jazz musician, rarely appearing on camera. His absence only added to his aura. Brooks became a kind of legend in Trek lore, the brilliant captain who chose to walk away. Denise Crosby. Denise Crosby stunned fans by quitting The Next Generation in its first season. She landed a lead in Pet Sematary and a few cult projects, but the big roles never came. Ironically, her most enduring work was returning to Trek, not on screen, but as the creator and host of the beloved documentaries Trekkies and Trekkies 2. She found her legacy not in escaping Trek, but in celebrating it. Lee Whitney. Lee Whitney's story was difficult. Written out of the original series after only 8 episodes, she battled addiction for years, but she later found recovery, became a counselor, and inspired others with her honesty. Though her acting career never flourished, her survival and advocacy gave her story meaning beyond the screen. Jennifer Lien. Jennifer Lien, who played Kes on Voyager, left the show after 4 seasons. She voiced characters in Men in Black, the animated series, but soon retired from acting altogether. Sadly, her later years brought personal and legal struggles, a sobering reminder that not every Trek journey ends well. In all these cases, Star Trek itself was the bright star, the role, the moment, the legacy. Maybe they didn't land Emmys or blockbusters, but to fans, they remain immortal. So who had the best and worst careers outside Star Trek? Let me know your thoughts. And if I missed anyone, tell me in the comments.